Loads for us to get through, lads. So let's start by having a little recap of the game yesterday, Paddy. I kind of be the only one who was a bit nervous when I seen the back line of James Milner, Andy Robertson back in after a timeout, Joe Gomez alongside Virgil van Dijk. But, I mean, how wrong were we? Because they were just imperious yesterday.
I mean, listen, I was absolutely stressing when I seen the team come out 100%, especially Milner, especially against the City side. But listen, they made us all eat humble pie, especially Milner proved us all wrong, and they were unbelievably solid yesterday.
It was not a game that I thought would play out in that way, Chris. I think often at times we look at big refereeing decisions and we will move on to them and other things. But I have to say yesterday, I think Jurgen Klopp outmanaged Pep in that game.
I think Pep also outmanaged himself. He's got it in his own head. That the formation that they played was utterly baffling. That is that old saying, isn't it? You know, if it's not broken, don't fix it. They have been unbelievable attacking wise and defensively in the Premier League this season in the vast majority of times. And they just looked far too open especially in that second half. And if Jota had found a pass at the end of the first half, we would have been in again. They've not been carved open 4 or 5 times like that in any game this year. But yeah, I thought we looked totally solid, and it came out of nowhere, really. No one would have said that. Even Van Dijk, Robertson, they've had stinky starts to the season. They've not been at it, but they were all absolutely on top of their game yesterday, which I think was partly due to the crowd and the occasion, but I think you've got to give them a load of credit.
It was really nice, Paddy, wasn't it, to see their attack stifled as much as it was, to see us leave there with a 1-0 win and a clean sheet. And hopefully, mate, this surely has to be the springboard for us to push on now this season and get some confidence.
Well, listen, it's a massive result. Not only because it was City, but just because we needed to get a win going in the league, and nobody gave Liverpool a chance. Not even some of our own fans, including myself. So it was great to kind of shut those people up. The only kind of weird thing I've taken from it is usually when we play City and beat City, it's like we're favourites for the title then, or advantage for us in the title race. But to not be involved in it is still a bit weird. But listen, I suppose we kind of got to change our expectations and just be happy that we got a win against the best team in the league.
Chris, you know I love a little referee segment with you, mate. Why are they so bad? Mate, I mean, I know you like to try and be balanced in this, but every week it's getting worse. And I have to say, Anthony Taylor was shocking yesterday, in my opinion. I've seen people say they let the game flow, but there's just too many obvious wrong decisions. Like, as an example, Bernardo Silva trying to get breastfed from Mohamed Salah at one point, which I thought was rather inappropriate. And that led, of course, to Jurgen Klopp speaking out the way he did to the fourth official, or to the linesman, I should say. But let's just concentrate on the 3 mistakes building up to the goal. The corner that wasn't, the foul on Fabinho, and then the issue with Haaland challenging Alisson, which I have to say, I'm wrong on this, obviously, but I have to say, I thought that ball was there to be challenged. But you can't take away the other stuff in the build-up. And apparently PGMOL said that if Manchester City have any complaints, they are absolutely wrong, because it was at least 2 fouls.
Yeah, so the corner thing, I'm not, obviously it was a very deft touch, but they couldn't go back on VAR to change that. So it was too far back, and it's just a completely different phase of play. So that wouldn't have changed anything. For me, it's a foul on Fabinho. If Haaland had not yanked him towards the end, if you look in slow motion, there's a sort of a tugging motion, and that, for me, Paddy's look, man, it just does me in. The motion that he undertook showed a force, and it's totally a foul. And for me, I agree with you, Craig. I thought it was there to be won. On the whole, with the Alisson thing, but on the whole, letting the game flow thing, it's a really dangerous balance, because if you let a game flow, all this physical tension, the stuff, people get heated, more and more heated. There's more likely to be situations like Klopp arguing with the assistant referee and screaming at him, because it's such an emotionally high and concentrated situation. It's an interesting balancing act, and I think Taylor got it wrong. I think he should have blown up on several occasions for what we would call half fouls, but just to calm it down a little bit. It was getting a little bit too heated, but it was great to watch, but not great to referee.
What was your take on the refereeing decisions, the big ones yesterday, Paddy?
I think, well, it was a foul on Fabinho, for sure. Had it have not been given and I went to the Alisson handball and, the Haaland thing, I think it wouldn't have been given. And I think that would have been right. I wouldn't have given it. I think, Alisson didn't really have full control of the ball and Haaland got there first. With regards to the other stuff, I liked how he let the game flow and made the game a very intriguing game. I suppose there was probably a lack of consistency with what he let flow and not flow. I think, letting it flow is fine, but when there's a tougher challenge in there, you have to kind of step in. But I did enjoy how we refereed it, and considering we came out on the better side of it, I'm even happier.
One thing, Chris, that I left that game yesterday convinced of is that Mohamed Salah is at his deadliest when he goes through the centre. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't know what it felt like inside the stadium, but after he missed the chance in the first half, it was in the first half, wasn't it? Or was it? No, sorry, earlier on in the half. My apologies.
Yeah.
I knew when he went through the second time, Chris, that he wasn't going to miss. I've never been as convinced of a goal coming in my life than when he absolutely made a mug out of Cancelo. And imagine that was Trent. Imagine that was Trent, how much we'd be listening to today. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I knew he was going to score, man.
I was saying to my dad, I was sat by him and I said, when he missed that chance, that is the chance of the game. We're not going to get that again. But then when he went running through, as you said, there's just a totally convinced that he was going to put that away on his left foot. Sort of reminded me of the finish, reminded me a little bit of, you remember the goal against Arsenal he scored where ran through the centre in his first season. And it just went through one-on-one. There was almost a guarantee we felt that he was going to score. And yeah, I'm just so buzzing for him, to be honest with you. And the fact is, it was almost like a carbon copy of that goal against Man United as well. Alisson with more goals and assists than Jack Grealish in 2022, but one's a playmaker.
Paddy, one thing I've noticed about Mo in recent games has been he's putting it about a bit. He's throwing players around like ragdolls. You can see that upper body strength, and he was so clever in the way that he manipulated Cancelo to get that ball yesterday and to go through one goal. And as I said to Chris, imagine that was Trent that was done like that by Haaland or something. That would have been all over social media in seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. No, listen, I agree with your initial point of through the middle, Salah is a different animal, and it truly unlocks his full potential. And it's great to see, because a good Liverpool team should have a good Mohamed Salah, and it's good to see him kind of back to his best. So hopefully we persist with him up there. He is a power. I think it's underrated how strong he actually is. If you look at he enjoys an out topless post, so you can see kind of how muscular he is. So it's good to see him use that. On the goal, the turn was phenomenal. I seen that, as a guy told me earlier on that he was lucky that happened, that he didn't mean to do it. I was like, okay, mate. But yeah, no, good to see Cancelo ragdolled, someone who's lauded as somewhat untouchable. But yeah, he was laughed at yesterday by Salah.
Chris, Joe Gomez. Just that's all I have to say to you, mate. Just Joe Gomez.
Joe Gomez.
Yeah. When it came out he was playing centre back, I was a little bit frightened, if I was being honest. I don't think he's got the greatest jumping reach still. And that might be to do with his injury. It was a terrible, terrible injury to his leg. And in basketball, I don't know if you guys know, but that injury does your career in, because you can't jump. And I thought against Haaland, that could be dangerous. However, I think the way he defended was really clever to his own skill set. Basically, whenever Haaland had space, he dropped off a little bit and just allowed him to try and play make. And that's not Haaland's strength. He needs to get pop shots off, and he closed angles well. I thought he was just brilliant. It was peak Joe Gomez. And I think when he and Verge play like that, it doesn't make you so worried when the likes of Kanate and Matip are injured. I mean, if they can have a good run, who knows? Maybe they can establish themselves as the first choice pair again.
Well, there certainly looks like they're going to get a few games to do it now. One of my favourite moments, Paddy, yesterday, apart from obviously winning the goal, Pep Guardiola going into meltdown, all that stuff, was the Van Dijk header from underneath his own crossbar. Because the look on Haaland's face, the begrudging respect for what Van Dijk had just done, he knew he had a tap in, and that for me was just a little bit of Verd saying, "Yeah, I got this.
Listen, Van Dijk was coming under a lot of criticism this season by rival fans, by us as fans, and I think the best kind of litmus test there is against the most informed striker in the world, and I thought he done it effortlessly yesterday. And Yeah, I think it's is that the fourth time or at least third time he stopped Haaland scoring. I think he scored once for Salzburg against us. But yeah, it's great to see. It was great to see the pictures of them as well, because that little nod from Haaland, like going, yeah, no, fair play. It was good. And I'm glad that Van Dijk got on the other end, got on the better end of it, because every time that ball went into the box towards Haaland, I was worried.
Chris, let's have a little talk about Andy Robertson for a second, because I thought that he was absolutely imperious. I keep using that word, but I thought he was brilliant. And that was a Robbo type of game yesterday. He loves those type of snidey affairs.
I don't know if did it catch it on the camera yesterday when he was pumping up the crowd towards the end. I don't know if you guys if it came up for you, but he was in towards the Anfield Road corner. He was like pumping up the crowd. Come on, towards the end. Every tackle, everything he wanted. It was pure passion from Robertson. He always seems to unlock something against Manchester City. I think Kostas has had a ropey few games, if I'm being honest, and that place is up for grabs again. If Andy Robertson can prove himself in that position, especially in these games coming forward, I think he'll establish himself as the first choice again, because that position was in doubt, and rightfully so, because he was pretty ropey at the start of this season. But more performances like that, more defensive solidity, and I think, yeah, he can be that number one, and maybe the number one in the world again if he carries on.
I think we were both nodding on there in agreement, Paddy, with Chris. I mean, we've both been calling for Costas to get an opportunity, myself and yourself. He did, but I think the shirt's back with Robbo. But I tell you, Paddy, we spoke earlier on about being absolutely convinced when Salah was through one goal that he was scoring for the second one. I was absolutely convinced when that ball dropped to Robbo on the edge of the box that it was going straight into the stands. I had no belief that he was going to get that on target whatsoever.
No, Robbo loves that. One of those aimless. He doesn't really have the technique required to pull off something like that, but he doesn't stop him trying. But yeah, it's always unfortunate to see it drop to him, because you just know it's destined for Rosie. But no, yeah, I've been one of the biggest kind of Kostas sexuals, but I don't really. Listen, I'm glad I was at the time. I thought it was the right call, but ultimately he hasn't taken his chance, and Robbo's come back in and showed why it's so important to have an able backup, so you are pushed and go to that next level, which is what you need in every position. But no, I definitely would be sticking with Robbo now for the foreseeable.
He's only got one choice left, Costas, and that's to shave his head. That's it. That's his only option left now. I mean, Thiago got serious. He shaved his head. And actually, while we're talking about Thiago, Chris, his feigning of innocence when he absolutely took the legs out from under Rodri or whoever it was in midfield. I mean, that was priceless. He straight to the ref and go.
I know, man. And I tell you what, it was an underrated performance from Thiago yesterday as well. He did a lot of work that not many people have seen. Him and Elliott, defensive covering, especially in the first half. I thought they were brilliant, but that was funny. I tell you what, and bald-headed Thiago, maybe he's here to stay, and I'm here for it. I still prefer him with the hair, though. He does look better with hair.
He's got the Paddy Murphy cut on his face as well to go with the shaved head. He's obviously been watching Paddy in action.
Well, listen, the best follow the best, isn't it?
Let's get stuck into the xenophobia stuff actually before we move on to the West Ham game, because I'm not sure if people have seen the newspapers today or maybe follow the Anfield Talk or any of the big accounts on Twitter. There has been some accusations apparently labeled towards Jurgen Klopp's comments where he spoke about there being 3 clubs in the world who don't have to really work within financial constraints. That has been twisted and ran with in some articles. I believe the Times were one association that published this, then removed the xenophobia comment from it. But apparently, Chris, they're trying to make out like Jurgen Klopp's comments were xenophobic towards Gulf or Arab states. Now, look, I will give you my reading of the situation, which is the same, I think, as Klopp and most other people. It's not where the money comes from. There are some conversations to be had about where the money comes from, but it's got nothing to do with who they are, where the money comes from. It's how they are illegally or how they are flouting the rules or circumventing the rules, and how having to run at a profit doesn't apply like any other business. That's what Klopp meant. We know that's what Klopp meant. It had nothing to do with the race, gender, nationality of any of these owners.
I don't get it, Craig, if I'm being honest with you. It's baffling how they can draw xenophobia out of that, of any sort of of discrimination. He's literally not made any comment whatsoever about where these people are from whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's twisting people's words and then some. It's totally unrelated. I'm just totally in shock when I read that this morning. And the stuff in the stuff about the comments anyway, the fact that they said, oh, it riled Manchester City up and it caused them to sing the Hillsborough chants. Like, lads, I mean, to sing about people getting crushed and dying, it's just not normal, is it? Whether you've been angered or not, it's ridiculous.
Paddy, I've always hated Manchester City and the way the club is run, but I've always had a respect for those Manchester City fans that we spoke about many times that went down to the division, sold out Main Road and broke attendance records and all this stuff. But that for me, fella, is gone now, because I've seen enough videos yesterday of the chanting, of seats being broken up, of graffiti, of stewards being had a go at. Is probably the best phrase I can use here, and trying to break out of the away end at the end when they were being held back, as any away fans are after a Premier League European game. It's not a small minority, mate. It was a large group of those travelling fans, and they need to hang their heads in shame because it's disgusting.
No, absolutely. I know you said like the OG City fans that kind of follow them up and down the Football League. I'm sure some of them are still fine, but it's just the kind of new age of youngsters that have only known this, state back city that get sort of so smug and kind of jumped up. Yeah, I mean, disgusting behaviour. Absolutely. I said it earlier on to joke about any tragedy is horrible. Even Liverpool fans joke about Munich, or, nothing should be joked about. And that, especially when you're uneducated on it, the Heysel stuff, they don't know. Anyone who was found to do wrong at that was arrested and put in jail. There was ramifications, but yeah, no. I didn't really have any love for City, but that certainly kind of finishes any sort of anything that I thought about them as a club. Absolutely disrespectful. I've seen some fella in the chat there saying your club threw coins.
Yeah, I'll just pull that up here. I mean, what a boundary of the highest extent. Firstly, the club did fucking nothing. Some fans absolutely need to be reprimanded, and those that threw something that broke a window in the City bus absolutely need to be reprimanded and banned from the stadium. And I've no problem calling that out, mate. But your club is the comment of a fucking idiot. That's what that is, fella. Because who was up there? Well, was John W. Henry and Linda up there firing £2 coins down, were they? No. It was fans, and they were wrong, and they should be punished. And there's no defending that. And I'm sure, Chris, you feel the same, that anybody who was found to have thrown anything or who broke the window of the City bus, they absolutely deserve a ban, and they have no right or no business acting that way inside a football stadium or in society in general.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. I mean, the difference is that it wasn't. There's video evidence personally of this Manchester City chanting that it was a majority. Okay, and these coins, be thrown at people, but this is an away fans, which are usually a core group of fans and supporters that are basically, insulting dead children and dead people's families. Like, that is wrong. That is plain wrong. Yes, throwing coins is grim and that should be sorted about. But this is a bigger societal problem. It goes on not just throughout the Manchester City fans, but most other clubs who seem to have an idea of this. It's mental, man. It baffles me how it's still happening.
It is. It's apparently, Paddy, like Liverpool fans and Liverpool's a football club, and as a city, you're supposed to just take this crap every single time away fans want to start singing about the Hillsborough disaster, and every time that things aren't going their way and they want to act up and be petulant about it. It's disgusting and it needs to be called out. And Manchester City and any other football club that don't immediately find and ban all of these people, you are as culpable as those scumbags in my eyes. And that's my take on it, Paddy. It's very easy to identify a lot of these people because there's enough videos floating around. They will know who travelled to the game because I'm sure all of the away tickets would have to have gone through Manchester City. So, yeah, act.
100% on both ends, by the way. Like any of the Liverpool fans that were found to do wrong, they should be banned. I think the club said they would ban them for life, and same with the City fans. But on the whole thing, I don't know if you've just seen...
Hang on, sorry, Paddy. Are you having a stroke or something? Like, Is there something wrong with your hearing? We've already spoken about this, dum-dum. We've said anyone who broke anything on the bus is a scumbag and deserves to be reprimanded for it. The whataboutery is not going to get you out of this situation, mate. Your club massively shit the bed over the past couple of days with some unfounded accusations and more whataboutery from a club that have absolutely fuck all morals. Just accept it and move on. Nobody cares about your whataboutery. It is the argument of a fucking imbecile. Now stop. Sorry, Paddy.
Also, it's not club v club. It's normal people versus dickheads. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you support. Like, if you're damaging things or singing these things, like, you're a dick.
I don't know if you've seen, City have just won Club of the Year at the ceremony. Club of the Year, they won. Can you believe that?
I mean, they won the Premier League. Fair. But
no, but like, surely Club of the Year goes to kind of like upstanding clubs, not a
or the double winning
watching project.
Real Madrid.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, probably that's a good place to start. That's insane. Wow.
I don't know. I mean, look, congratulations to them. Whatever, they won a fair play. It was voted on. You know, we are where we are. Right, let's move on and have a little chat around West Ham, Chris. Another game that was marred, by the way, with dodgy decisions from officials with VAR. I think David Moyes was absolutely right to be fuming at that 1-1 draw against Southampton. But I'm expecting a battle against West Ham, but ultimately I think we should have enough to get through that game at home and pick up the win.
Make no mistake about it, this game is absolutely huge. Yeah. I'd argue the way we respond in this game will dictate a lot of how we go in the next until the World Cup, until afterwards. Manchester City, yes, the occasion, the event, brilliant. You know, we beat the best team in the country, but this we have to win. It is imperative to make sure that game was actually meaning something. I think it'll be really difficult, to be honest with you. I think they'll come out and probably have 2 banks of 4, maybe a bank of 5 and a bank of 4. They have got quality as well. David Moyes, you know, he hasn't got the greatest record against Liverpool or at Anfield in general, but he's certainly a canny manager. So I think it's going to be really difficult, but it is absolutely imperative we win.
They come into the game, Paddy, West Ham, with Tsimikas, who looks like he's settling in quite well there and finding some form. They've got Jared Bowen, who's, again, starting to find a little bit of form. Declan Rice, who, if I'm not mistaken, scored that goal against Southampton. It's going to be a proper game. And I think, as Chris said, we can't rest on our laurels. We can't, bathe in the win against Manchester City. It needs to be the springboard for us to push on now and start collecting points.
Absolutely. Like, the City game was obviously big in terms of the occasion, but like, it's only worth 3 points. This game is as big as that. I hope Anfield can be up for it, and I'm sure they will because it's a nighttime game. But yeah, listen, we kind of have a bogey enough record against West Ham. We haven't lost to them since 2019, but before that we've lost and drew, and they've kind of scuppered us. So we need to be on our ball. Tsimikas seems to be finding form just at the right time for him and the wrong time for us. So they have a lot of good players that they'll be up for it more than ever. So we just got to make sure we win. It's a huge game, and as Chris said, like, it can totally dictate how we set ourselves for the World Cup break.
Would you play the same 11 against West Ham? And I think that's an interesting talking point. I've done my prediction, just recorded it there for the game, so I'll quickly fly through mine. I think with who we have available, I'm not going to be surprised if it's not a 4-3-3. I think it will be a 4-3-3 with the options that we have available to us. So I've gone for Trent right back, Robbo left back, Gomez and Van Dijk. My midfield trio: Thiago left, Elliott right, Fabinho in the holding role. For me, and look, this is a roll of the dice, but I've gone for Carvalho on the left, Salah on the right, and Bobby through the centre. And I know I want to find a way for Darwin to play, but I feel this is what Klopp will go with regards to through the centre. I think he'll go with Bobby. So, thoughts, and what would you change?
I'm not sure. I'm not overly sure. What's the situation with Konate? Because I know that he was touch and go for the game. Hopefully,
you couldn't whip the shirt off Joe Shirley for this one.
Well, no, I was thinking Trent on the bench. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we need to maybe ease him back in. I thought he was rushed back a little bit to get on the bench, but yeah, I'd probably go Konate instead of Trent, and then I'd probably go Nunes instead of Carvalho, and just make them
Paddy loves
rotate
a bit of
around.
Nunes on the left, don't you, Paddy? Loves a bit of Nunes wide left.
I tell you what, some of the runs he made though yesterday, like going on the left hand side and the right hand side, if whoever's on the ball at fullback can just ping it into him, mate, it can create so much space.
I mean, I think, Paddy, in the little cameo we seen every side of Darwin. We seen the good running, we've seen the poor decision making that needs to be worked on, and we've seen him be a little bit unlucky with the one that Trent just couldn't get to at the far post. And I absolutely understand people saying Nunes to start. I'm just giving you what I think Klopp will go with. I think Klopp might probably give the nod to Carvalho because, you know, we await news on the Diogo Jota, and it doesn't look promising though, unfortunately. And we hope it's minor, but you know, as it is, our left side is a little bit shy, Paddy, with no Diaz, no Jota. So would you go with Darwin or would you go with Carvalho?
Well, I hope we stay away from the 4-3-3. I think we're finished with that. I don't like it anymore. I just think it's so one-dimensional. We've been found out long ago with that. I'd be sticking with the 4-2-3-1. So obviously Alisson, Trent, Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson, Thiago, and Fabinho in the pivot. Bobby in the hole. Elliott on the right, Nunez on the left, and Salah through the middle. I would keep Salah through the middle, but I need Nunez in there. I think Carvalho is going to feel unlucky, but Nunez showed he can do a job on that left. And while I prefer him in the middle, I think we have to keep Salah there. So based on that system, I'd start with a 4-2-3-1 with Darwin on the left. I
did think about a 4-4-2, Chris, with the two central midfielders that we've spoken about, Thiago and Fabinho, with Carvalho left, Elliott on the right, and Darwin and Salah to the centre, or Firmino and Salah, because I want to find any which way we can to get Salah centrally. So I agree with what Paddy was saying there. I'm just trying to figure out what way Klopp's going to be thinking. So any of those systems, I think, have merit at this point. I just wonder with, you know, if we went with 4 attackers in that 4-2-3-1, we're running out of bodies in attack. So if they're to be fluid with the system, I think we need to make sure we have the personnel to maintain the system.
Yeah, absolutely. With Jota and Diaz out, it leaves an absolutely massive hole in our attacking line. I have a feeling we'll stick with this sort of 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 system that we've got going on. Personally, I feel like Salah is at his best utilized through the middle. But then it's hard to then, you know, can you take Bobby Firmino out? Can you take Mo Salah out in the form that they're in? It's hard to squeeze Nunes in, to be honest. Even though he's in like decent form, got 2 goals in his last 3 games. So yeah, it's exciting to have this sort of depth going through the middle. But I mean, someone's going to have to fill in on the left hand side.
I can hear what you're saying. It's a good headache, though, as you've said. It's good that we have personnel coming through. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works out. But ultimately, we await news, of course, on Konate's fitness, on Diogo Jota. But I'm excited, Paddy. I'm excited because it's another good game on Wednesday. We then lead into an early kickoff against Forest. Then midweek next week, Champions League. Next weekend, we finish up with who was that next weekend again? Oh, Leeds away, or Leeds late at night. Sorry,
yeah,
Leeds late at night. So for me, I'm thinking. To be honest, lads, I'm thinking 9 points. And I know it's easy to say, oh, look at them getting carried away after beating City. But if we even play 3 quarters as well as we played against City, I'm thinking 9 points. But I wanted to just ask you a question, Paddy, about our defensive system. Surely it's not me that just notices we're defending deeper now. We're not persisting with that high line, or at least we didn't against Manchester City, in my opinion. I think we gave ourselves a little more room to maneuver and a little more room to be safe. And I think it was a safety first attitude, particularly in the first 45 yesterday. We didn't overcommit an attack. The attacks that we did go on, I thought that they were safety first attacks, if that makes any sense. We were very mindful of not getting countered in a transition.
Yeah, which is good. It's good to see the adaptation, you know, and the actual plan B's in place, because I think it was plain for everyone to see that high line was catching us out time and time again. So it's good to see Klopp finally kind of adapting and evolving. But But yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to be 3 wins out of 3, 9 points. I think, listen, credit to Leeds, they're a decent side, but ultimately we still should be beating them. Forest, I mean, listen, they're down at the bottom for a reason. I know they have something has to give at some stage, but we cannot afford that to be us. And listen, West Ham at home, it should be 3 points out of 3. And that would be a really, really, that's when you proper can kind of say, right, now we are back. Not back in a title sense, or just back in terms of to our best. And, you know, we can build from that, use it as a springboard.
Chris, your take on the defensive first attitude yesterday. You were inside the stadium. You know, sometimes we see these things in different ways if you're watching on TV or inside, but what was the vibe from the first 45?
Yeah, I think it would be suicide to have a high line against Haaland, Foden, and just in general, every single Manchester City player. They're all rapid, and we had James Milner at right back. It would have been catastrophic. So there had to be a change, and I feel like there has been a reluctance to change. It's sort of like system over personnel in certain situations with us this season. You have to make changes. You have to make tweaks, especially when it's such a change in profile with a Milner there at fullback and an Elliott in the right midfield. I really liked it, to be honest with you, and I think it has to be a change that maybe we'll slightly build out of, and maybe go for a higher line again against the likes of Leeds and maybe West Ham. But for Manchester City, it was the perfect tactic.
Let's talk about Arsenal, Chris, for a minute, if I may, because sometimes, mate, you need luck on your side, or you need the rub of the green, and they're getting it. And I don't mean they're getting it illegally or anything like that. I mean, they're just getting those things that you need to fall for you if you're going to have a push. And I've spoken to Lee Gunner and many Arsenal fans, and they're being cautious in their optimism for the title challenge. But, you know, us beating Manchester City yesterday, hi, Manchester City, gives them 4 points, gives them a 4-point gap there. So, I mean, when do we start taking them seriously?
We don't. I don't think they've got the depth. I don't think they've got the quality to compete with Manchester City over 38 games. Maybe over 10 games, yeah. But not over 38. I don't mean to be blasé. I feel they were even slightly lucky to beat us with their refereeing decisions.
Oh, we were robbed.
Like, I'm not saying they didn't play well. They played. Arteta's built a fantastic team. I just feel like there's a lack of experience there. It feels very similar to when Liverpool first came onto the scene as a title challenger. I just feel like there isn't really enough there depth wise for them to be considered at the top of the tree. But look, I really like what Arteta's doing there. It's fantastic to watch.
Oh, absolutely. He deserves immense credit for the job he's doing. I just think maybe, Paddy, an injury or two, and their squad starts to look a little bit weaker than it does when they're able to put their best 11 out week in, week out.
You know what? I certainly hope so. Their fans need to be brought down a peg or two. Jesus Christ, the arrogance of their fans is quite something. Giving us shit. I can't wait for them to be humbled. They've always been really cocky, but they were so shit for so long. They kind of, you know, like an old dog, kind of just like whimpered away. But now they've put a few wins together. They're acting like Billy Big Bollocks again. But I think they're a decent side. But surely with the depth, as you said, something has to give eventually. They were lucky against Leeds, lucky against us. But I suppose they're still getting the wins. So that's all they have to say.
I mean, if I was to ask you gentlemen now as well about a Champions League victor this season, who would you think, who would you make favourites for the Champions League? And I'm not talking about the bookies' love child, Manchester City, who were favourites every single year in every competition for everything they show up for. But what do you guys think? Who would you put your money on if I gave you 50 quid now for a Champions League victory this season? Who are you putting it on, Chris?
I mean, I'm not a betting man, but surely the safe bet's Real Madrid, right? They always seem to find a way. They've still got the immense experience. They've got new blood in there. I'd be very surprised if they didn't go and win a 15th title, honestly.
I think they deserve to be in there as a serious contender. I mean, I've looked at PSG enough this season, Paddy, to know that they are just a farce. They are just a group of hope that one of the front three can do something. There's no rhythm to PSG and how they play it all. They were outplayed at times by Marseille yesterday in that game I watched as well. So I don't take them as contenders. I don't think Bayern Munich. I think they could go deep, but I just don't see them having enough to really go and get that job done. So yeah, I'm probably edging with Chris.
I think Bayern, yeah, they don't that they faltered a little bit in the Bundesliga this season. They aren't that great. PSG are a team of just mercenaries. There's no kind of cohesion there. Listen, I wouldn't mind if it wasn't. I wouldn't mind seeing Messi win one, but it's hard to say that with PSG. Man City are going to be the favourites for me. It has to be. I think Real Madrid were extremely lucky to win it last year. I mean, they shouldn't have got to the bloody semis, let alone the final. They were extremely lucky. I don't see them winning it. I think it's between Man City and us.
I think we deserve to be in the conversation, and I can understand wholeheartedly the Manchester City shout, because if they keep Haaland fit, it's going to be.
Is there any shout for Napoli?
Absolutely zero.
No, semi-finals, I think.
I know they've got off to an amazing start. They whooped us. They've been walking through the group. Raspadori looks really good for them. The guy whose name I can't pronounce looks really good for them. But I just think that they'll come up short when they get to the knockout stages. They'll have a game where they draw a blank at home or something. I've watched Napoli enough over the years to get that Spurs bang off them where they'll find a way to capitulate. I just don't see them being serious contenders. I'd like them to, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
They're top of Serie A as well at the moment, so they've got to be.
How bad is Serie A though, Chris? At the minute, it is so poor.
Juventus are shit. AC Milan are pretty shit, and they won the league 2 years ago. It's between Napoli and Atalanta.
They won the league last year. Oh, you say Inter there?
Yeah. So
Fair.
it's. I mean, even Roma are in with a shout this year under Jose, so it's a pretty mental league to watch, but it's shit quality.
Where are United at, Paddy? Where do you think United are at in their evolution now under Eric Ten Hag? See, Ronaldo's wormed his way back into the starting 11 again.
Well, as long as they keep doing that, they're going to falter because he's not the answer whatsoever. It's a weird one with United. They're nowhere near good enough to challenge, and they're so up and down with the performances. There's no consistency. It took until the 90th minute for them to score against Ammonia, which sounds like a disease. So I don't know. I think they're another kind of season away from truly looking good, but I do think they're in the right hands with Eric Ten Hag, unfortunately. But if they keep Ronaldo in there, they're going to falter because he is no longer good enough whatsoever.
Yeah, it's weird to think that they do need attackers, Chris, because you look at Rashford, Martial, Europa League, Ronnie, but Rashford has fallen off a cliff with regards to his form. Martial's injured every 5 minutes, and Europa League, Ronnie is, as Paddy said, his best days are behind him. So what's your take on the United situation under Ten Hag?
To be fair, Rashford started this season well. I thought he did look good. And Martial, obviously, when he is fit, is a good option, but he never is.
Sorry. Then there's the attempted rape artist as well, who's up in court. Sorry.
Well,
I can't mention it. I'm allowed to say because it's now been... He's up in court on attempted rape charges. That's a fact.
Yep. And I think that puts to bed a lot of people wanting him back in the fold, shall we say. And I hope that there would be no more people. But I like Anthony. I like Sancho. Elanga's so inconsistent as well. I think Anthony and Sancho are the future for them, but it's just finding the focal point for them to work around. I think they would. I tell you who'd have done brilliantly there. Eventually would be Darwin Núñez. If he had gone there, Goldbridge always said, didn't he, in the summer, that they needed a player like him, and a player of his profile, I think, would be perfect for Man United.
They were in from though, weren't they?
They were, and then but Goldbridge always said, didn't he was going to Liverpool.
Good old Goldbridge. He's never wrong.
He did message me, to be fair, at the time, saying he was destined for Anfield. I'll give him his dues on that one. So look, top four, lads. Season starting to take a little bit of shape now, and now that we look a little bit more likely to be making a push in, let's go for a rejigged prediction. City to win it, Arsenal second, Liverpool third, Spurs fourth.
Do you know, Spurs are shit though at the moment. They're winning games, but they have been shit recently. Did you watch that? Did you watch that Everton game though? They were dreadful.
Chris, indeed.
They were absolutely dreadful, I thought. And if Damari Gray had
Everton were unlucky. The penalty was very harsh, but Everton played really well. They missed a couple of sitters, so they arguably probably should have got a draw out of it at least. But yeah, Spurs aren't pulling up any trees, but they're doing what needs to be done to get the win, though, which is worrying. They are grinding the results out.
I think City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal will be my top 4.
So we're getting second.
We're getting second, mate. We're going on a run. Second half of the season, we're going on a title charge.
I wouldn't say no to a run. I wouldn't say no to it.
Unless it was a real one, I'd say no too.
Yeah, facts, actually. I'm with you on that one. I'm turning that one down. So did we get yours yet, Paddy? I can't remember if we've asked you or not yet. Top 4?
For me, obviously, it's ever changing, but I'm going to stick with it now and fuck it. I'm going to put us third to avoid any kind of pressure. City first, and I'm spitefully going to take Arsenal out and put Chelsea there, and I'm putting Spurs fourth because I'm beginning an agenda against Arsenal. Arsenal finishing 5th or bottom of it.
If they don't get top 4 this season, after I believe the best start in Premier League history for them, if what League Gunner told me was correct, I believe Lee messaged me with that yesterday. So if they don't do it after that, I mean that would be the biggest bottling job of all time. If they didn't manage to get top 4. At the other end of the table, Chris, who's gone down to the Championship?
That's got to be Forest. Got to be Forest, isn't it?
Definitely.
The way that they're going, they gave Cooper a new contract, but they're going to have to click at some point. I just don't see it happening soon. If Leicester don't sack Rodgers, they're gone. I don't know. I think there's going to be a free fall. I think some team's going to be on a free fall, and I'm going to say Leeds.
Ooh.
Maybe Southampton, actually. Maybe between those two.
I kind of agree with what Paddy was saying. It's so difficult to call it outside of Forest.
Forest, rock bottom. Leicester are going down. I'd actually like to see that. That'd be quite funny.
Their fans are dickheads.
Yeah, exactly. I hope Southampton don't. I know a lot of people will do that, but I have to say, I know they have a good squad, but Wolves aren't doing anything. They're not doing anything really. I don't know who they're going to get in, so there's uncertainty around that. I'll go Wolves, which would be that could ruin them as a club because their owners are already kind of lost a lot of money.
It's mental that Bournemouth
aren't even being mentioned. Then for Mr. Nooch if they get relegated, little cheap deal.
Nooch, I'll bring him to me.
Isn't it nuts that Bournemouth aren't even getting mentioned? It's
fair play to them.
It's mental. The only team that unbeaten since we beat them 9-0 is them. Which
they haven't even appointed a full-time manager yet, right? They still have the
Gary O'Neill in there.
Yeah. So that's the same Gary O'Neill that used to play for Portsmouth, yeah?
Yeah.
And the same Gary O'Neill used to be a Liverpool coach.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yep. He left. Well, yeah, he left us for them in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Right, look, we're going to call it a night, my friends. Good news is next Monday we're going to have a return visitor, a return guest. Joining myself, Paddy and Chris will be Mr. Steve Bland. And I cannot wait to catch up with Steve. It has been far too long. Thank you to everyone. Paddy, you've upgraded. Well played. I've used that green screen image before as well. That's one of the ones in StreamYard, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually quite nice.
That's good. I mean, you've downsized a bit with your gaff there, to be fair, but you know needs must and all that.
The cost of living crisis, heating. My mother keeps reminding me the price of heating has gone up double. So yeah, it's tough times.
I know, and we're getting a deck put in at the back of the minute, and I'm starting to look at it like firewood rather than a deck.
Yeah, it is.
I made got a bag of coal today, 45 quid.
Oh my god, that's
for a bag of coal.
Shocking.
That's ridiculous. Anyway, look, we will be back soon. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Paddy. Thank you to you guys as always. Paddy, when are you next live over on your own channel?
Tomorrow at about 5:30, sir.
There we go. We love that. Thank you guys, and we will see you tomorrow. Much love. Bye bye.